So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Eugenia Rodrigues. She's a Brazilian Black woman journalist and spokesperson for No Corpo Certo, In the Right Body, a campaign against transing children.
Back to reality, why we cannot afford as humanity the trans discourse. The amount of damage created by the trans discourse cannot be ignored anymore. Brazil is one of the many countries in which healthy children are sterilized based on outdated stereotypes, where women are incarcerated with men and where people are punished for saying very obvious truths about what human beings are. Many of us try to solve this problem, keeping at least in some way the trans discourse alive. We try to establish a minimum age to body interventions, but stating they are okay for adults. We try to stop self-ID, but protect the category of real transsexuals. We state that human beings do not change sex, while we still use the expression trans people. I've been studying this issue since 2013, when Brazilian doctors allowed themselves to use puberty blockers and wrong sex hormones in minors. And I thought about many ways of solving what I used to see as a clash of rights, and now I see as a modern mass hysteria. The more I study, the more I talk to people around the world, and based on my personal experiences as a spokesperson of a campaign against medicalization of gender non-conforming kids, the more I conclude that we clearly must reject the whole trans narrative. We might try to stop body interventions on minors based on the belief of gender identity. And probably this will be one of the things we will live to see happening. But is it really ethical to cut off the breasts of lesbians when they are 22 and not 17? Is it really ethical to say to an 8-year-old boy that he's truly a girl, even if we do not allow doctors to change his body? Is it okay to lie to a child about such an important thing? Why should we trust health professionals to treat adults in an honest way when they profit from these cosmetic interventions and they know a proper therapy would probably end in no surgeries? Since so many health professionals identify themselves as trans or support this belief system, how do you stop them from forcing their faith on vulnerable patients of all ages? Plus, remember, poor families from countries with public health systems, such as Brazil, will take their kids to a public gender clinic, where they are not allowed to choose a therapist, let alone one who knows who Sasha Ayad and Stella O'Malley or Lisa Marchiano are. It's impossible for us to check if the child is or is not led by abusive, naive, attention seekers or homophobic parents. The case of British criminologist and the transitioner Richard Hoskins was a great lesson for us. If a 50-year-old man can be convinced that he is a woman, anyone can. The stories of the transitioners show that even when we are adults, we get caught in very vulnerable moments and make decisions we might regret. We cannot rely on these doctors' judgment. They prove it to us they cannot be trusted. We might try to protect single-sex prisons and sports, which I also believe we will achieve during our lifetime. But what about places more pulverized, such as toilets and changing rooms? How are we supposed to protect them if men are able to change their sex in documents? Even if we require medical procedures before the change of certificates, how are we supposed to know if he had surgery? Will an average woman question these folks when they get into the female toilets, knowing that mere questions makes them lose their minds? Why should a man who cut his penis have the right to enter these spaces, since his pattern or violence is the same as others? And even if he's a nice guy, he's not a woman anyway. Can every small business in the world, every little school in poor countries that sometimes does not even have toilet paper, really afford to build a third toilet? We might try to protect our freedom of expression, to state in our private life and social media to the world that human beings cannot change sex. But what if you are talking to a trans-identifying person? How do we protect ourselves from accusations of transphobia when we are just stating facts? It might look easy to start calling your coworker Kevin by his new name, Kellie. It's just a name. What's the big deal? But even if Kevin recognizes that he did not change sex, that he must not enter female spaces, and even if Kellie or Kevin does not run for the affirmative politics in your company, at some point you will have to lie. At some point you will be forced to say to him that he's in some way a woman. You will be forced to pretend. You will be forced to pretend that gender identity is real, that his fantasies of womanhood are in some way real when they're not. So it's very different from having a colleague which is religious, because at least in democratic countries, our religious colleagues are not allowed to force their beliefs on us. The lack of freedom of expression damages even the health of these dysphoric individuals, since doctors have to walk on eggs while talking to them. And these are just some of the problems. And the more people say they are trans, more citizens are affected in many unexpected ways. A lesbian follower of our Instagram account told me that her new therapist suggested she might be a trans man, even when she did not express any dysphoric feelings. But when she questioned the psychologist, the woman said she has a trans kid and feels that she has to create a more inclusive environment. It's almost impossible to stop well-intended people from grooming, believing sincerely they are doing the right thing. Any kind of trans jeopardizes vulnerable people, especially gender non-conforming children and adults suffering from mental health issues or victims of abuse. Any kind of trans jeopardizes women and girls' rights, theories, and organizations. Any kind of trans jeopardizes our language, freedom of expression, our jobs, academic lives, statistics, health guidelines, politics, and our rights to tell the truth and live honest lives. Any kind of trans denies what we truly are as humanity. We must stop lying. We must stop pretending that some people are trans, since, as we all know, no man could in any way be a woman, no woman could be in any way a man, and no one can be non-binary, agender, bigender. We must stop pretending that it's a right to be recognized as something you are not and force other people to lie. Some lies might cause no harm, such as telling children about Santa Claus or assuring a beloved friend we loved her new haircut. But not this lie. This is too big. We will end the problem not by recognizing the differences between women and trans women, or men and trans men, and between us and other thousands of gender labels, but stating that no man can be a woman, no woman can be a man, none of us can become a third type of human being. And that's all. No one is transsexual, transgender, non-binary, polygender, or any kind of trans. No change is possible or needed. We will end this problem not by saying children cannot consent with this so-called treatment, and not only saying that children cannot consent to this kind of treatment, but even adults. Healthy parts of the human body being removed is not a treatment. That's why we stopped lobotomies. We remember that. We all must state relentlessly the truth. that the emperor is naked. O imperador está nu.
Can you give us a quick update on the situation in Brazil? Is at the moment, or just news, has anything been happening on the trans issue?
Recently, our Supreme Court reinforced a decision of years ago that men have the right to enter on female prisoners. The judgment is not completely finished, so we have still a chance to change this decision. Children. Precisely today, I had this news that attorneys in the state of São Paulo are forcing the registrations bureau to change certificate of children based on their parents' will. And we at least, we do have some good news. And there is a project to stop these interventions in the state of São Paulo. And this project advanced a little bit. We choose the people there, the politicians. They choose what we say a relator, which is a politician will be responsible for this bill. So it's like a baby step. But we shouldn't know. I mean, it was here in Brazil, people and institutions were totally captured. I mean, attorneys and public defenders and lawyers organizations and psychologist organizations. I mean, we do have here a normative that forbids psychologists to question gender identity, always using the comparing with sexual orientation, all that bullshit about being a conversion therapy. Academics here are very, very colonized by queer theory. All these things that I see people talking around the world. I mean, in United States and United Kingdom, it's very similar here. It's very similar here. I mean, even the jargons, even the way these young people are talking, and like this pansexual thing, and it's very similar.
It sounds as if in the whole of Latin America, all of South America, it's been implemented very, very fast. How about public reaction? Are more people turning against it or questioning it, like we have in England or in Britain?
Yeah. I think that the average Brazilian person does not buy this bullshit. But the problem is that although they do not buy it, I mean, they are not doing, practical things, to change this. And mostly, I think that because Brazil has so many problems. I mean, we have so many economics and political problems, some urgencies they have on their daily lives. They do not take the time, to fight against this. I mean, most people do not have a very close person that identifies as trans. They do not so politicized. So, but at least this, they do not buy. They just think it's a bunch of crap.